Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Truth in Politics. I'm your host today, JJ Foster, and today I get the honor of bringing on Miss Valerie McCray, who will be running for Indiana Senate. And what better guest to have when we honor International Women's Month than to have Miss McCray. Miss McCray, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I don't want to sound like, uppity or whatever, but it's actually Dr. McCray. And that's going to be important because I'm running as a psychologist for U.S. Senate. So it's going to be a different game. It's a game changer to have a psychologist in Senate. And so that's the goal moving forward. So.
All righty. Well, honestly, yes, we don't want to disrespect anybody. We want to get you the credit that you deserve. So, Dr. McCray, you are a clinical psychologist. Why politics? What brought you into politics?
You know what? Again, it's because I'm a psychologist. And let me tell you where this started. This started when I was working in the prisons. And I was walking around the prisons and I was thinking, you know what? Most of the people here would not need to be here if it weren't for the poverty issues, for the drug issues, for the proliferation of just messes in our community, gun violence, and that sort of thing. What if we went to Washington? What if I did things differently instead of trying to do these things one person at a time? What if I went to Washington and enacted policies that made sense so that when we move forward, I'm affecting a bunch of people? So for me, it's practical. Being a Black psychologist especially, you're being pulled in a lot of different directions, and there's just not enough people to go around, not enough psychologists to go around. What if I went to a level where I enacted policies that would affect a lot of people instead of one person at a time? So that's the main reason why I'm running, just to because I have that eye, that ear for what's happening in our community because I work in the trenches.
All righty. And you're exactly right. I mean, with, post-COVID, a lot of isolation and things going on. Mental health has become a hot topic. We see stuff going on with professional athletes where folks weren't generally getting passes for not doing competitions and things. But mental health has been on the forefront of a lot of Americans in talking. Now, you mentioned you being an African-American psychologist. Do you think, is Indiana ready to have an African-American in that position?
They're ready to have this person in that position. One good thing about working in the prison systems, and also work with the military. So my clients come from all walks of life, actually. All races, all sexual orientations. But one of the things about working in the prison areas, most of these prisons are in these small rural areas. So I'm used to communicating. I'm used to having relationships, having friendships in little, small, all basically white communities. I'm used to those dynamics. I'm used to the people I work with. Usually, a lot of times, I'm the only Black person in some of the settings that I'm in. So that's never been an issue for me. And nor has there ever been an issue with people being able to relate to me. I give one example, whereas we were getting signatures, and we stopped at a gas station, and there was a truck. And one of my friends was talking to the people in this truck, and he came from inside the convenience store. We were pumping gas. I came from a different direction from behind the truck, but he calls me over. And sure enough, the people inside the truck needed some mental health, some sort of triage work right then and there, because there were some suicide issues, some fentanyl issues. They had a combination of things that were happening all at once. And so it wound up being a therapy session right on the side of their truck while we were at this convenience store. And I was telling my friend later on, which is not unusual for me, but I was telling my friend, if you would have came up from behind the truck the way I came up from behind the truck, maybe you wouldn't have approached that truck, because on the back of that truck were MAGA signs, don't take our guns, Confederate flags, that little cartoon that, where it's tickling on Biden or whatever. Everything that would have said, this Black female shouldn't approach this truck. That just went away, because mental health issues, they go above and beyond what, people's race or sexual orientation or any of that. Any of those things that divide us at that particular point is just people just talking. And it's about listening regardless of what is on the outside. So they had no problem signing They never asked me if I were Democrat, if I were Republican. We just had a job to do. We had a conversation to have. And those things I'm used to. So I think we can bridge a lot of gaps, bridge a lot of I think just by listening, you get to bridge a lot of the gaps between people. Now, granted, there are some hardcore folks out there that you're never going to change, not in this generation. They're stuck. But there are a lot of people in between that are just trying to figure it out like everyone else. Those people, I can reach those people for sure.
Yeah, all right. That's a great perspective, and I love the pureness of your perspective. What do you say to people that say, you talk about politics, if you really want to make a difference, but you're dealing with politicians, so nothing ever really truly gets changed? What would you say to people that have that approach?
What I say to those people is vote. Find those individual people, regardless of policy, regardless of not policy, but regardless of party. Find those people that you trust. There are good people in office. There are good people that are trying to get into office. It's a matter of sorting them out. I think that where a lot of politicians get in trouble is they start taking on a lot of corporate money and a lot of corporate baggage. And so they are bound to those people more so than they are the people themselves. Our campaign is determined not to get bound by someone else's political agenda. We're not interested in taking big corporate or funds from people that we don't really believe in their actions or what they're doing. We don't want to get bound by that. I don't want to be gagged. I don't want to be bound by any of that, so that when I get to office, I'll be able to represent the people. And we just need more of that. We just need to add those people together. And there's a lot of good politicians out there. They're just not as loud as the bad ones. They're just not as loud, just not as vocal, not as out there, but they're there. They're there.
I got you. You compared. You talked about capitalism in America. You said it's a good thing, but you actually talked about it being narcissistic and sociopathic. Elaborate on that. Tell us what you mean by that.
You read my my
I
website.
do my homework. You're in the
did your
right
homework.
place. There you go. But yes, we do homework.
What I was saying, capitalism, the way it's practiced. I'm one of these people that believe that people, if they want to get rich, somebody has to drive the Maserati, somebody has to buy those pieces of art, somebody has to buy those yachts or whatever. I'm not against any of that. What I am against is that people have so much money they can't spend it in this lifetime, but they can't spend it in 1,000 lifetimes. So they're doing things like flying into space or doing stuff like that when we have people right here, right now that needs caring for right now. So it doesn't make sense. I'm saying be rich in this lifetime, have enough money to take care of your kids and your grandkids and your great-grandkids, but it becomes ridiculous when all of the money is at the very, very top, 1 or 2%, and there's nothing trickling down. That doesn't work anyway, the trickling down theory. It doesn't work. The thing about capitalism as it's practiced, it's, when I say narcissistic, it's about what I can get, and it's never ending. It's a greed cycle, and once you get on that greed cycle, there are corporations, there are companies that have a different philosophy about making money, where the people that work for them, the people that are vendors, and they want to also take care of the environment all at the same time. It doesn't mean that you have to have this capitalistic society where it's about taking care of your shareholders instead of taking care of the stockholders, the stakeholders. Does that make sense?
Yes,
So the
ma'am.
stakeholders would be your workers, it would be your vendors, it would be the people that are keeping your business going. It would also be the environment. The environment is a stakeholder as well. But our capitalistic system is about sucking everything up for the shareholders, and they could care less about the environment, some of them, and they could care less about the people that they work for. So they're going to give them as least amount as possible, give them the least amount of benefits as possible, while they take care of their shareholders. And that's a narcissistic way of dealing with capitalism. There are corporations such as B corporations. I love the philosophy of the B Corps, and they believe in taking care of the workers, taking care of the your vendors, and also taking care of the environment and making a profit at the same time. And I believe that we can do all three of those and still make a profit and be viable companies for the long. It's more sustainable. This way, you're just burning out, using up, burning out these people, using them up. It doesn't work in the long run.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's funny. I obviously there's several examples that you can use, and you just use all of them. But we'll go your priorities: mental health. You talked about. You just explained capitalism, affordable housing. That's
Oh my gosh. Housing right now has become such especially with the hedge funds and all these different corporations buying up property. What is happening now? We're turning everyone into renter society. So 40%, if we keep on this trajectory, 40% of all residential housing is going to be owned by a corporation, which means we're turning Americans into renters instead of owners, homeowners. On the people that are already renting are already finding that their rents are so expensive, so they're working 40 hours, 50 hours, 2 jobs just to pay the rent. If you're trying to get into a new apartment, you have to have so much of a deposit. You have to prove that your income is only a certain amount, that your rent is only going to be a certain amount of your income, which means a lot of people are even locked out of renting. I know, because I've got cousins knocking on my door saying I need some place to stay. And I'm like, oh, hold on. But, and I understand that. But the thing is that rent has become so expensive, and we need to bring that down. We need to make it more viable. And it's just went up in the last 4 or 5 years where it's just skyrocketed, absolutely skyrocketed. I've actually got people that are also senior citizens that were on a budget, and if their rent inches up a couple $100, it's really squeezing the life out of them. I've got people that are retired having to come out of retirement because they can't afford their rent, trying to get a little extra money here or there.
You're exactly right. I know that is a big issue. What type of ideas, any programs, what do you have in mind? What should take place?
I think for one thing, we need to make it not as easy for these hedge funds to go and buy a big blocks of property. We have people from out of state, out of the country, buying land here. That has to be taxed differently. That has to be a disincentive for doing that. I'm not talking about your average person in Indiana or wherever that has 5 or 6 rental properties or 10 rental properties. I'm talking about some of these companies have thousands and thousands of rental properties, thousands and thousands of property. We have to make sure we disincentivize that by taxing it differently, making sure that income goes back into. We just need to make it uglier for them to do that, so that the average home buyer can afford to buy a home. They're competing right now with corporations. So when a house goes up for sale, you're not competing against another homeowner that wants that house. You're competing against a corporation that's willing to pay above and beyond the cost of the cost of the house. They're able to go above and beyond, which locks out everyone else. And they're even buying up the fixer-uppers, which
Correct.
Young people could get in there, fix them up, sell them off, and just do better next time. They're locked out of those as well.
Yeah, I mean that is part. A lot of corporations, that's their investments are buying up housing. That's the new thing. That's the safest investment they can make. You're exactly right. The other part, home ownership, they're not building anything under 200,000 these days.
Right.
And in some areas, these incomes aren't going up. So what can somebody afford? Even if a corporation did come in and purchase that home, as you said, if I make $30,000, what are these people? What are they? What kind of homes are they going to buy?
We have to really look at the wages as well. Our wages have been stuck at this really weird low level for 30 or 40 years now. Back in the 60s, income used to have a cost of living increase. They haven't did that for 40 years. I used to work for General Motors as a college student years ago. I made $13 an hour way back then. I'm not going to tell you how far back that is, but it was a ways back. People are fighting to get $13 an hour now. It just doesn't make sense. It's not even close to what it takes to live or to buy a home. So we have to start there as well. Make sure people are getting the incomes that they need to make this work. You shouldn't have to work 40 hours a week or 50 or 60 and still not be able to cover your basic expenses. But we want more than that. That's subsistence living, and that's stressful living. We need income such that people can pay their bills. And I call them breathable wages because people have a chance to excel in between paychecks and just say, okay, we were able to do this. We were able to do this. We can put a little bit aside, maybe go to Disney World this year or something, take the kids somewhere, maybe look into college programs, whatever it is we need to do. But right now, people are not earning that type of income. So they're on that steady grind, which means that goes right into mental health issues as well, anxiety, depression, just that overall feeling of I'm not enough. I'm not making it work. What's going on here? And they don't realize the playing field is different than it was back in their daddy's days. Yeah. The playing field is different. You guys the young people today have a lot less to work with and a lot more demands.
Agreed. I love that livable wage. I mean, breathable wage, because, we typically say livable wage. We do a financial podcast. So if you ever tune in, I'm going to be using your saying breathable wage. I do like that. Let's move down your list of priorities. AI. Elaborate on that.
AI can be the greatest gift, but it also, if we're not careful, if we're not able to really get some ethics connected to it, it can also be our worst enemy. We want our technologies to enhance us, but we have to be careful when technologies just totally replace us, because that's what's happening with a lot of the jobs and everything anyway. The technology is taking them over. So just with AI, it's a slippery slope. It can be a very positive asset if used properly, but it could be our enemy if not. So it's just being careful, having people in office that's not afraid of technology. I'm a scientist by trade. The PhD is about being a scientist as well. That's not afraid of going forward, but also who can hold the ethics in place to say, what does this mean in the long run? What does it mean for the people to be able to do this? What does it mean when you can just have someone else type a paper for you? Just AI. I mean, AI writes the best speeches ever, and you're tempted to use them because they're really, really good. You can say, AI, write a speech on this. And I'm like, goodness, this was better than the speech I wrote, but I don't use it. I just, sometimes you need a word or something. But if you ask AI, hey, AI, what are the dangers of AI? And it will spell it out for you. And it'll tell you, hey, there's problems here because we've got problems with privacy. We've got problems with people sending people down these rabbit holes as far as they'll be even more getting more of the bad information because it's about algorithms. They'll tell you that there's a lot of problems. AI itself, everybody should do this. Just say AI, whether it's that, what is it, AI? Chat, yeah. Use that one. If you use that chat thing and say, hey, AI, what are the dangers of AI? It will tell you what the dangers are. It lays it out really, 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 really succinctly.
Wow. I've got a couple of friends that have been in relationships and have written anniversary speeches and birthday poems for their wives. But there is a tool that you can put it in there and it'll tell you if AI did it. So they got busted.
Yeah. Yes. Well, they just developed that tool recently. It helps with plagiarism as well. There have always been tools to check to see if somebody's plagiarizing. I used to have to use it with my students. It's like, oh, wait a minute, this sounds a little bit too good here. Let me see if you plagiarize this. Occasionally, I had students that, no, I couldn't find anywhere. They were just brilliant students. So there's There's some people that are so brilliant that they could top AI. So
Gotcha. Where do you stand on the 4-day work week? And I bring it up now because I know some other states were talking about the 4-day work week and using AI to, the days that the workers weren't in. Where do you stand on that?
the 4-day work week and having AI to stand in for the fourth day. Ah, I think that's a slippery slope for sure. But the 4-day work week itself, it's about work life balance. What do people that are wealthy enough? What do they do? Do they work 24/7? I don't think so. I think it's a work life balance issue and getting people where they can relax. I think the argument right now is that people are working harder, working longer, harder. Technology's better. They're producing more, but they're still working these really long work weeks, and there's not enough left to go around. And if you think about it, after a while, next thing you know, you're 60 or 70 years old, and you don't have anything to show for your life except that you've worked all of that time. I think it's a good idea. Whether or not it's practical or not right now, I'm not sure. It would give not AI an opportunity to work, but it would open up more jobs for people that need more jobs. It would force companies to hire more people or that sort of thing. If that's the goal, work-life balance is important. So I think it's a kind of a good idea, something we can explore going forward and see how that works out.
I guess the mentality, work hard, to get what you got. But other places, I mean, the siesta, when you go to countries that have siestas, I mean, I think that's the most productive and the best idea ever.
Yeah,
Everything
man.
shuts down and speaks to that quality of life that you talked about, that
Yes,
balance.
that work-life balance.
Yeah.
Here in the United States, it's set up, we're going back to the whole capitalistic thing as well. It's set up to use you up and burn you out until you get 70 years old. And now Social Security, they keep inching that up to 67 and can't work if you do this. I mean, it's just crazy. So it's made where all your life is spent working and hoping that one day you're going to be able to relax. I think that if we can get a work-life balance for people now, that's what's really important. And take it from me personally, my parents worked they worked in factories, they worked those extreme positions and died at 62. They never got a chance to even enjoy their retirement, so to speak. So at what point do we say we got to get a little bit of enjoyment? We got to get a lot of enjoyment as we go along, but balance that with work as well. But also, the research has shown that after a certain amount of hours, you're really not producing that much anyway.
Correct.
People, I'll work 12 hours. Okay, 12-hour days. The record shows you don't do any more in 12 hours than what you do in an 8-hour day. You just don't. That last 4 hours, you're just too tired to really produce anything.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Student loans.
Student loans, years ago when I first got into this whole conversation about, in this whole political conversation, myself as a student loan holder, my student loans would have been paid off a long time ago if there were no interest attached. People want to pay their bills. They don't mind paying their student loans. But the interest keeps you in a holding pattern for years and years and years. So the interest rates usually on student loans can be 7% unless your parents took out a loan or something for you, and then they're stuck with it. But that's at a rate whereas you never finish paying off that loan unless you get that really good job one time and just start chunking it down and paying it off. But if we just didn't put the interest on loans, most people could pay it off. We could start there. I know Biden proposed recently to cut people's student loans in half. That would have been so nice, but that was not passed. So we're still stuck with the student loans. In the meantime, I think the argument should be let's just at least take the interest off the loans. That would give us a start. That would give people a chance to actually see every time they pay $200, $300, $400 a month, they actually see that balance go down. Mine has been the same balance for the last 20 years because I'm just paying the interest actually. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. One day.
And it's funny, I'm actually starting to see people that are talking about we stress education to young people. And then we get people in these colleges and these universities, and it doesn't work out. Then they spend the rest of their life paying back these loans. And, it was the first time I really had looked, like, okay, people are knocking, you promoting somebody going to college. But when you look at it from that standpoint, and in my world, I'm a mortgage originator, the number one thing that's holding people back is their credit, and which a lot of it stems from their student loan and that debt. So it is a vicious cycle, and it, like I said, had me rethinking what I grew up on.
I think we need to rethink how that whole credit scoring thing works anyway, because a lot of that is made to keep poor people poor and to take advantage of people that are struggling. So now you get a score that says, okay, now you have to pay more money for everything. Now you buy your car at a pay here lot. Now your interest rates go up because your credit scores go down. During COVID, I experienced some of that because I didn't do the PPP loans and all of that stuff. I kind of just dealt with the fallout just like everyone else. So when your credit score drops, your insurance rates go up. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
How is it I've never had a car accident and I've never claimed anything really on my home except when there was a hailstorm and broke up everything. But other than that, why is it when your credit score goes down, you get punished for situations like COVID or whatever that's no fault of your own? So the people that are in the bottom parts of this wage earning thing, they make it so impossible. They load them with so many punishments, I say, based on a credit score. I'm not saying there's no place for some sort of scoring, but it feels to me as if the whole credit score thing is are you being a good a good worker, and are you doing good doing these things? And it almost feels it's a way to keep people down, I think, and we have to find a different solution for that.
Agreed. I mean, it is definitely a systematic problem that we have. If you talk to folks, how does the credit score really work? Only a few people know how it actually really works. Lastly, women's rights.
Oh, lastly, but most importantly, women's rights.
There we go.
Oh, my gosh. I can't believe that in 2022, 2024, we are dealing with a situation where we've went backwards 30 or 40 years, especially when it comes to women's reproductive rights. And when you deal with women's reproductive rights, you're also going to be dealing with career rights and wage rights and all of these things, because when women can't control their bodies and how and when they choose to be parents, everything else puts them in a very subservient position as well. But the timing, I understand people that are pro-life. I think no one is pro-abortion that I know of. But if you're pro-life, then help me get legislation done that allows people to have child care, that allows people to have decent time off, that allows to make sure that there's efficient healthcare facilities in areas that need them the most. Right now, women are still dying in childbirth at an astronomical rate, especially Black women. So our numbers are looking the same as third world countries, if not worse, because some of the third world countries get it that giving birth to a child is very, very dangerous. It can be very, very life-threatening, of course. And they have whole systems in dealing with pregnant women and making sure they're okay. We're not making sure our women are okay in childbirth. So why are we putting the cart before the horse and demanding that they have children when they might not be ready to do that? Contrary to popular belief, most women that have abortions, for example, already have children. And they decide, wait a minute, the timing is just really bad here. Or it might be the husband say, baby, listen, we just got this one off to college. What are we doing here? Then all the medical issues as well that we have to contend with. And sometimes people are just not able to take these children to take these pregnancies to term. Might be something wrong with the fetus or whatever, but now they're making women stay pregnant even though the pregnancy itself is not viable. That's crazy. The situation with the 10-year-old that was clearly raped or misused, trying to make her have a baby of her rapist. All these things are just critical that we do something to change back that dynamic that's happening now. France actually just recently enshrined the women's rights to have an abortion. They enshrined it, which is similar to codifying it, but basically saying this is a woman's right. This is a basic human right to be able to control your bodies, and we have to do something similar here. It's just important.
Yes. I looked at numbers the other day. In spite of all these laws, abortions were up across the country. So, how does that work? It is, kind of, I don't know what the word is, but the fact that they're up and everything that they've tried to put in place to not have it that way.
Think about it. A lot of this was just dumb legislation in the first place. Now you're telling women that they've got 6 to 8 weeks to make a decision. So women that may have had time to get used to the idea and say, okay, you know what, maybe I can handle this. Maybe I can make some adjustments on my job. Maybe this relationship can work. Maybe this is something I might want to do. Might be rushing before that time clock runs out, because once that time clock runs out, then they might not be able to do it at all. So they might be rushing people into a decision to terminate a pregnancy that they might not normally terminate. So they're working against themselves by putting that 6 weeks or 8 weeks thing there, that heartbeat law, which is ridiculous because fetuses don't have hearts at that age. At 6 or 8 weeks. So
yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
Okay. Now, I want you to reach out there. We're coming to a close.
Okay.
Why should somebody vote for you? What makes you the person for this job?
I'm the perfect person for this job right here, right now. It doesn't mean that other people haven't been good for the job then, but to have a clinical psychologist, someone that has worked in the trenches, someone who works with PTSD, that have seen the worst of the worst, who understands the mental health issues behind what people do and what happens when people are under stress. That's one thing. But also, I've been in a lot of spaces and a lot of situations myself. I've been a business owner. I've been a flight attendant. I've flown internationally, so I have a global view of things. I've been a single parent. I've been, I've had a lot of situations that most people don't have in one lifetime. I'm from the hood. I went to a public school. I'm a success out of a public school. We need more of that. So all of these things that say, okay, this particular woman in this day and time is what matches what we need in Washington, D.C. I think I'm a rare find in that way. I think I've sort of been trained to do this. And sometimes a lot of the things that I went through, I'm like, God, please, I could read the book. I don't have to actually experience all of this. I could just read the book. I promise you I'll read the book. But I've actually experienced a lot of the ups and downs that my clients have experienced, a lot of the things that the people in general have experienced. I drove Lyft. I've had a car where it failed and my car was messed up and I had to get transportation. I had to get to work. I drove Lyft so I could have transportation to get somewhere. So I had to rent a car, drive Lyft to get to work. I've done all that. And because of that, I'm also determined not to forget that. I grew up, I'm a Planned Parenthood baby where all my health care came from Planned Parenthood when I was younger. I still understand that. I want to fight for that, for young people going forward. For right now, right here, I'm the best person to get there. I still understand, and I'm determined not to ever forget and to make policies such that the people that come behind me don't have to struggle as much as I've struggled and as much as other people have struggled, and just make life better for everyone in general.
All righty. Dr. Valerie McCray, it has been a pleasure having you on this show.
Thank you.
And for you all that are out there, Dr. McCray is looking to become the first female senator in Indiana, the first African American senator in Indiana. But at the end of the day, neither of those two factions matter. If she's the best person for the job, she's the best person for the job. Get out, do your research, compare her to the other candidates, look at your research, and make an informed decision. But get out there to vote. Your vote counts. It has truly been a pleasure to have you on. Signing out of This Is Politics, I'm your host, JJ Foster. Until we meet again.
Thank you.